It read, Middle school dropout bumpkin on the place card. In order to attend the wedding of her boss, Kristen, who is the head of her department at work, my daughter Sabrina left the house. However, she returned home with a dejected countenance about 20 minutes later. I am aware of the amount of effort Sabrina has put out to win Kristen's approval. She has worked nonstop from early in the morning till late at night without ever complaining. Nevertheless, Kristen regarded her as a simple high school dropout without even recognizing her efforts. That is totally unacceptable. Usually, no matter how difficult the situation, Sabrina is able to bounce back. But she was still depressed today. I can't keep quiet any longer. I made the decision to act. After discovering the truth about Sabrina, Kristen, who despises her subordinates, will sincerely regret what she said. Keith Marshall is my name. My age is 51. My daughter, Sabrina, and I currently reside in a 3-bedroom apartment. I have wonderful memories of living in this apartment with my family, but it is too large for the two of us. We have a hard time moving out because of this. When I was 30, I met the love of my life. Sophia was her name. I had limited opportunities to meet women because I had always been focused on my profession. Day after day, my life consisted solely of work and home. I couldn't help but feel jealous as I saw my friends marry and have families one after another. More than anyone else, I want to start my own family. The reason for this is because I grew up in a home with only one parent. I had always wanted to get married and create a family of my own as soon as possible, because my mother had been my only relative from birth. I met Sophia through a friend, and I knew she was the one the instant I laid eyes on her. Fortunately, she thought the same of me, and our friendship swiftly developed into something more. Sophia listened to anything I had to say and always put me before herself. I was confident that I could create the kind of family I had always envisioned with her. That's why I asked her to marry me. We were married 6 months after we first met, so our romance was brief. We became a wonderful couple, nonetheless, as if we had known each other for ages, in spite of the pace. My life got even more satisfying once I married Sophia. All of a sudden, the mundane days seemed more joyful and brighter. I didn't realize how amazing ordinary life might be until I met Sophia. After 5 years of marriage, Sophia confided in me that she was expecting a child. It was our first child, the moment we had been looking forward to. Sophia laughed when I started purchasing baby things before the baby was even born because I was so ecstatic. I knew that after our baby was born, life would be even better than it was when we were just the two of us. I nearly worried that it was too good to be true because I was so delighted. And then, our daughter Sabrina was born. She looked just like Sophia, fair skin and big, beautiful eyes. She was so adorable that I finally understood what people meant when they said, "I love them so much I could put them in my eye, and it wouldn't hurt." With more responsibility on my shoulders, I worked even harder. At that time, I had been entrusted with a major project, so even though I wanted to rush home every day, I forced myself to stay late at work. About 6 months into that life, I began to notice something strange. "Sophia, have you lost some weight?" When I asked her, she responded casually, "Maybe it's just because I'm not used to taking care of a baby yet. But I don't think it's that noticeable." At that time, I was leaving home early in the morning and coming back late at night because of work. That meant I had left all the housework and childcare to Sophia alone. "I'm sorry for making you do everything. I'll take over on my days off, so please take it easy," I said, hoping to give her some relief. But she shook her head. "It's fine. You're working hard for us, aren't you? Taking care of the house and the baby is my job. You don't have to worry about it." She smiled as she spoke. That smile looked like an angel's. Seeing it made me even more determined to work hard. At that time, I had no idea what was happening to Sophia's body. A silent illness was slowly taking its toll on her. "Keith, have a great day. I made your favorite hamburger steak for lunch today. Do your best at work." That day, I was scheduled for a one-night business trip to the neighboring town. I had been nervous about an important business deal since the day before, but Sophia had prepared a special packed lunch for me. I never talked to her about my work. I didn't want her to worry unnecessarily. Yet, even without me saying anything, she always tried to understand my job and cheered me on. She even put me before herself at times. I loved her with all my heart, and there wasn't a single day I didn't feel grateful for marrying her. "All right, I'm heading out. Take care of Sabrina." With those words, I left home as usual. Sophia held Sabrina in her arms and saw me off until I disappeared from view. I never imagined that would be the last time I saw her looking healthy. I arrived at my business meeting venue. As I was reviewing materials before the deal, I felt the usual nervousness. I had been through many major negotiations before, but no matter how many times I experienced it, the tension never faded. Each time, I would picture Sophia and Sabrina's faces to motivate myself. Just minutes before the meeting was about to start, my phone suddenly rang loudly. I wondered who it could be at such a crucial moment. To my surprise, it was Sophia's mother calling. She almost never called me, so a sense of unease immediately filled my chest. I answered right away, and her panicked voice came through. "Keith, something terrible has happened." "What?" Her next words made me doubt my own ears. "Sophia collapsed at home and was rushed to the hospital. Can you come right away?" My vision went dark. She was perfectly fine this morning. What in the world was happening? I had to get to her immediately. With that thought, I quickly explained the situation to my business partners and rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, Sophia was lying quietly in the hospital bed, connected to a ventilator. Beside her, her parents were holding Sabrina, tears streaming down their faces. Sabrina, too young to understand anything, was laughing innocently. The doctors say Sophia had a progressive illness. It's already in the final stage. She only has a few days left. I was speechless. I couldn't comprehend the thought of Sophia leaving this world. Was it my fault? Had she gotten sick because I left all the housework and child care to her? Why didn't I realize Sophia's illness sooner? My mind was in complete chaos, spiraling into panic. But as I sat there in despair, Sophia's father began speaking to me in a calm, steady voice. Sophia had always dreamed of getting married and having children. When you two decided to get married, she was overjoyed. She told us she had finally met someone who truly understood her. She wanted to do her best for you, Keith. So don't ever think she was unhappy. She was truly happy. I couldn't stop my tears. I held Sophia's hand tightly and called out to her over and over. "Sophia, please come back. I can't live without you." But there was no response. For the next 3 days and nights, I stayed at the hospital, leaving Sabrina in the care of my in-laws. I wanted to be by Sophia's side when she woke up. Then, on the third night, a miracle happened. Despite the doctors saying she would never regain consciousness, Sophia slowly opened her eyes and looked at me. "Sophia, can you hear me? I'll call the doctor right now." As I said that, tears welled up in her eyes, and in a barely audible voice, she spoke. "Keith, I'm sorry for causing trouble with your work." Even in her suffering, she was worried about me. That was just like Sophia. But I didn't care about work. I cared about her. "What are you talking about?" Tears streamed down my face. With the last of her strength, she said one final thing to me. "Keith, please take care of Sabrina. I'm sorry for being a bad wife." And with that, Sophia quietly closed her eyes. That was our last conversation. The funeral was held without issue, and time moved on as if nothing had happened. No matter how much time passed, the sorrow of losing Sophia left me unable to function. The job I had once worked so hard for no longer motivated me. I simply went through the motions, doing the bare minimum to get by. One day, after finishing work, I went to pick up Sabrina from daycare. There she was, waiting for me with a bright, beaming smile. She ran up to me and said, "You look tired. Sabrina will make you feel better." She had just turned 2. A tiny child already worrying about me. At that moment, I went back to my original feelings and remembered the day Sabrina was born. When she was born, I swore that I would make her happy. I had to pull myself together. Sophia would have wanted that too. I decided then and there to put my grief aside and become the best father I could be for Sabrina. I had relied too much on my in-laws, so I started making an effort to rebuild our lives on my own. I worked harder to finish early so I could pick up Sabrina from daycare myself. Even though I wasn't good at cooking, I practiced using the recipes Sophia had left behind. Every day was a struggle as I navigated household chores, but I did my best. "Dad, your curry is the best." Sabrina always praised my cooking. Those words became my motivation. Before I knew it, my once tiny little girl had grown from an elementary schooler into a middle schooler. "Dad, you left your socks inside out in the laundry again. You need to fix them before washing, or they won't get properly cleaned." "Oh. Oh, right. Sorry. Geez, get it together. Your lunch is on the table, so don't forget to take it with you." "Thanks, as always." Sabrina had become such a responsible young woman. Even though she was at an age where she probably wanted to go out and have fun with her friends, she took care of me, helped around the house, and did so much for our home. Her voice, her expressions, she was just like Sophia. To me, Sabrina was both my daughter and, in some ways, like a mother figure. Then, when she was in her 3rd year of middle school, she called me into the living room with a serious expression. I had no idea what she was about to say, but what she told me was completely unexpected. "Dad, I've made up my mind." "Huh? About what? Is there something you want to do?" Whenever Sabrina spoke to me in such a serious tone, it usually meant she wanted something from me. So I listened casually, expecting a simple request. "No, that's not it. I'm not going to high school. I decided to start working after middle school." I couldn't believe my ears. "What? But you always said you wanted to study English in high school." Sabrina was an excellent student, especially in English. Her homeroom teacher, Mr. Irwin, had even assured me that she was capable of getting into a prestigious high school. I had never once doubted that she would take the entrance exams. So what was she thinking now? I was completely caught off guard. Seeing me speechless, Sabrina continued. "I want to get out into the real world as soon as possible." I had always tried to respect Sabrina's decisions, and I wanted to continue doing so. But this was different. I couldn't stay silent. "You should think this through a little more. Japan is still a society where education matters. If you start working with just a middle school diploma, you're going to face a lot of struggles." Even after hearing my concerns, Sabrina remained firm. "No matter what you say, this is what I've decided. I've thought it through carefully." I was at a loss. But in the end, seeing how determined she was, I had no choice but to accept her decision. Eventually, Sabrina received a job offer from a company, and after graduating from middle school, she officially started working. Then came the first day at work. I was even more nervous than Sabrina. What if she couldn't fit in because of her educational background? The thought made me restless. To support her, I had bought her a nice suit as a gift. Sabrina laughed and said, "Dad, you're worrying too much. I'll be fine." But I wanted to do everything I could for her. Meanwhile, Sabrina seemed genuinely excited about starting her new job. "I want to become someone who contributes to the company as soon as possible." As we left the house together, she waved her hand energetically and walked into the company building. As I watched, I prayed that Sabrina would be able to work safely and without trouble. That evening, I decided to cook a special meal to celebrate her first day. But even after I finished cooking, she still hadn't come home. I waited anxiously for Sabrina to return. Finally, I heard the sound of the front door opening. I rushed to the entrance. There stood Sabrina, looking utterly exhausted. She must have been drained from her first day at work. "Are you okay? I made all your favorite dishes. Let's eat together." Even when I said that, Sabrina didn't look up. "Sorry, Dad. I need to write everything down before I forget what I learned today. Can you eat without me?" Then she went upstairs without another word. Sabrina, who had always loved eating, had never once turned down a meal like this before. I was confused. Had something happened at work? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. That night, she never came back downstairs. The next morning, I woke up and went to check on Sabrina, but she had already left. However, on the dining table, she had neatly prepared my breakfast and packed my lunch. At that moment, I convinced myself that she was simply doing her best as a working adult. But from that day on, a gap began to form between us. Sabrina had been leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night, working long hours. Even though we lived in the same house, there were days when we didn't see each other at all. One night, after weeks of this routine, she finally came home while I was still awake. And the moment I saw her face, I noticed something. "What happened? Have you been crying?" She seemed startled, as if she hadn't expected me to be up. "Oh, Dad, you're still awake." Looking at her closely for the first time in a while, I realized she looked exhausted. Her once round face had become noticeably thinner. Was her job really that tough? The thought worried me. Cautiously, I asked her about work. Did something happen at work? At my question, Sabrina suddenly broke down in tears. She had never been one to cry easily, even as a child. No matter what happened, she always held back her tears. For her to be crying now, it had to be something serious. I gently stroked her head, and she sobbed even harder before finally speaking. Actually, what she told me next left me speechless. Her colleagues had been looking down on her for being a middle school graduate. Worse yet, her direct supervisor, Kristen, had been treating her terribly. Kristen was a highly educated woman who had graduated from a prestigious university. Because of that, she seemed to see Sabrina as inferior, making her the target of her contempt. A boss treating their subordinate that way? It was unacceptable. I felt rage boiling up inside me. This wasn't just unfair. It was completely wrong. "I'll go talk to that boss of yours," I blurted out in anger. But Sabrina immediately grabbed my arm, her eyes desperate. "Dad, please don't. I'll handle this on my own. If I work hard and prove myself, Kristen will have to acknowledge me." Then, without another word, she went upstairs and started studying. When she was little, I used to take care of everything for her. But now she didn't need me to fight her battles. She was determined to carve out her own future. All I could do as her father was stand by and support her. The frustration of not being able to help weighed on me, but I cheered her on with all my heart. Even after that night, she continued studying diligently every evening after work. I was sure that eventually, her efforts would be recognized at the company. Or so I believed. One day, Sabrina started getting dressed in a fancy dress, something she rarely wore. She told me she was attending Kristen's wedding. "Do you think this outfit looks okay?" She asked me the same question multiple times, clearly anxious. "Yeah, you look great. You look beautiful." Good. If I show up to the wedding looking bad on top of being a middle school graduate, who knows what Kristen will say about me? "Yeah, just go and try to enjoy yourself." Hearing my words, she nodded, took a deep breath, and left the house looking determined. After the wedding, she was also planning to attend the after-party, so she had told me she'd be home late. Maybe I should go out for a drink myself for the first time in a while. As I was thinking about that, an incident happened. 20 minutes after Sabrina left, she came back, with tear-streaked eyes. Sabrina's face was filled with sorrow. What happened? Did you forget something? I asked in shock. But what she said next was beyond anything I could have imagined. When I arrived at the wedding venue and walked inside, my place card said, Middle School Graduate Bumpkin. Middle School Graduate Bumpkin. Did her boss really do something this cruel? I was at a loss for words. I knew how hard Sabrina had worked to gain Kristen's approval. Every day, from early morning to late at night, she put in her best effort without a single complaint. And yet, without even acknowledging that effort, Kristen mocked her, just for not having a high school diploma. Unacceptable. Did no one at the wedding say anything about it? When I said that, Sabrina nodded quietly. I was even more appalled. Normally, no matter how difficult things got, Sabrina was always able to shake them off and move forward. But this time, the sadness lingered. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Well, how interesting. I didn't think people like that still existed, people who actively try to bring others down. Hearing my words, Sabrina lowered her head. Kristen was completely unfit to be a boss. And as for her co-workers, how could they just stand by and do nothing? I had made up my mind. I was going to take action. The next day, I headed to a certain place. When I arrived and opened the door, a woman quickly approached me. Mr. Marshall, what brings you here? Is there some kind of issue? She seemed flustered. Oh, there's a huge issue, Kristen. Your department seems to be engaging in inappropriate behavior toward new employees. What? That's not true at all. Kristen was trying to play innocent. That's right. I was the president of the very company Kristen and Sabrina worked for. I couldn't stand by and watch my daughter suffer any longer, so I came directly to her office. Had Kristen shown even the slightest sign of remorse, I might have reconsidered. But instead, she tried to cover up her actions. Seeing this, I made my decision. I built this company with the vision of creating a workplace where everyone is treated fairly and can enjoy working. If even one employee is suffering because of discrimination, then something needs to change. Kristen looked at me with a confused expression. Then, I raised my voice so that everyone in the office could hear. This department has made it clear that it judges people based on their education rather than their abilities. If this continues, it will be disastrous. To prevent that, I'm shutting down this entire department, effective immediately. Every single one of you is fired. A wave of shock spread through the office. The employees went pale, and Kristen looked like she was about to panic. Why would you do this? If you shut down this department, the company won't function properly. No one here has ever judged people based on their education. Kristen was trembling as she desperately tried to defend herself. Then, from a quiet corner of the room, Sabrina stood up. Dad? She stared at me, wide-eyed in shock. I hadn't told her about my plan to dissolve the department. She must have been completely caught off guard. But the person who was the most stunned was Kristen. Dad? Sabrina's father is Mr. Marshall. As she whispered this in disbelief, murmurs began spreading through the office. Wait, the middle school graduate's father is our president? No way. This has to be a joke. They were whispering, but I could hear everything. Thinking about how this prejudice against academic background had caused Sabrina so much pain, I couldn't help but raise my voice. Sabrina is my only daughter, and I will never forgive anyone who hurts her. It wouldn't have mattered if it was Sabrina or someone else. The result would have been the same. Now, pack your things. As soon as I said that, the office was thrown into chaos. The employees finally seemed to understand the reality of the situation. This is too much. We've dedicated ourselves to this company. How can you just fire us like this? Kristen's face turned red with frustration as she lashed out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her words only fueled my anger. An employee who truly cares about this company would work to make it better. Instead, you've done the opposite. You've judged a new hire based on her education rather than her abilities. That goes against everything this company stands for. Employees like you have no place here. But the fact remains, Sabrina is a middle school graduate. It's only natural that people would see her differently. Everyone in this office worked hard to earn their college degrees just to get into this company. At her words, the other employees nodded in agreement. And whether someone is a middle school graduate or a college graduate, the moment they join this company, they're all part of the same team. It's your outdated mindset that has ruined this department. Kristen looked down in frustration after hearing my words. Everyone in the office seemed overwhelmed with a sense of despair. After Sophia passed away, I originally worked as a salesman at a large corporation. The job was demanding. I traveled all over the country for business negotiations. For over 10 years, I worked relentlessly. But after losing Sophia, I realized that I needed to change my work style if I wanted to raise Sabrina properly. I consulted my company about adjusting my workload, but they wouldn't accommodate me. So, I made the difficult decision to resign. At the time, I thought I would find another job quickly, but I was wrong. Finding a new position was much harder than I expected. Seeing me struggle, my father-in-law approached me with an unexpected offer. Keith, you were a great husband to Sophia, and now you're a father to Sabrina. I want to support you both, so I have a proposal for you. Then, my father-in-law began making a shocking proposal. You know that I'm the president of M Corporation, right? I'm getting old, and I've been thinking about retiring. If you're willing, I want you to take over as the next president. I was stunned. M Corporation was a leading company in its industry, holding the top market share in the country. There was no way I could handle such a massive responsibility. That's what I thought. Seeing my hesitation, my father-in-law continued to persuade me. I won't retire immediately. I'll take my time training you. You won't be thrown into it blindly. Even so, it was a completely different industry from what I was used to. I didn't feel confident at all. But then he said something that changed my mind. Being a company president is tough, but compared to your sales job, you'll have much more control over your time. That flexibility will help you raise Sabrina on your own. He was right. I still doubted whether I was capable, but for Sabrina's sake, I agreed. And so, I became the president of this company, dedicating myself to making it a workplace where people could thrive. In the silent office, Sabrina suddenly raised her voice. Dad, no. This isn't their fault. The reason they look down on me is because I haven't proven myself yet. It's my fault. What? Sabrina suddenly started saying that it was her fault. After everything she had endured, she still believed she was to blame. If I work harder and prove myself, I know Kristen and the others will stop looking down on me. So please, don't disband this department or fire anyone. Just give me more time to improve. With that, Sabrina bowed deeply in front of me. Everyone in the office looked on in disbelief. No one had expected the person they had been mocking to defend them. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. But seeing Sabrina's determination, I decided to reveal the truth behind her decision to work here. Sabrina chose to join this company for my sake. Everyone held their breath, listening intently. Sabrina has always been my greatest supporter. When she decided to work here instead of continuing her education, she got down on her knees and begged me to let her join. She told me she wanted to help me and this company. She didn't do it for herself. She did it for us. Sabrina didn't join this company for herself at all. She did it for me and for the company. Kristen's eyes were slightly filled with tears. I had no idea this was the reason, Kristen muttered. Then suddenly, she dropped to her knees and bowed deeply before Sabrina. Sabrina, I always knew how hard you worked. You were always the first to arrive, cleaning the office to make it a better place for everyone. You stayed late to finish your work, never cutting corners. You diligently took notes on everything new you learned, which is why you were improving so quickly. So the truth is, you're not the one who needs to try harder. It's me. I'm the one who needs to change. I'm so sorry for everything." Kristen's voice trembled as she apologized, tears streaming down her face. Following her lead, the rest of the employees also knelt down in apology. "We are truly sorry, Sabrina." Hearing their words, Sabrina began to cry. "I'll keep working hard so that no one ever says I'm incompetent just because I didn't graduate high school." Kristen reached out and shook Sabrina's hand firmly. Watching this, I knew things would be okay from now on. No matter what challenges arose, I could trust these people to support each other and make this department stronger. This whole ordeal had forged an unbreakable bond between them. "Well then, it looks like there's no need to shut this department down. Kristen, you're one of the most capable leaders in this company. Just make sure you never judge people by their education again." Hearing this, Kristen gave me a sincere smile. Of course, Sabrina helped me change my perspective. I'm going to start fresh and do my best. As soon as she said that, applause erupted throughout the office. Since that day, Sabrina never came home with a gloomy expression again. She still left early for work, but now she returned home at a reasonable hour. Since that incident, Kristen seemed to have reconsidered how she assigned tasks, and as a result, work had become more efficient. "Dad, I'm going out for drinks with Kristen tonight, so I'll be home late." "All right, have fun." The very same Kristen who once looked down on Sabrina was now going out drinking with her. Recently, they had even gone on trips together. Thinking about how close they had become, I couldn't help but wonder, if things had started out this way, wouldn't it have saved everyone so much trouble? Sabrina had also become more open with her colleagues and now enjoyed going to work every day. That one incident had turned everything around. Life is a constant lesson. I don't know what the future holds, but from now on, I'll keep moving forward, enjoying life as it comes.
I was tidying up my desk when I got a call from my supervisor, Emily. I had been thinking about leaving without saying anything, but I was called, so I went grudgingly to her office. Then she made a statement that I found unbelievable. "Hey, can you take over the $15 million steal?" Above all, I had no desire to labor. It was strange that she wanted me to give such a large project to a recently discharged employee. I couldn't stand her victory any longer, even though her father, David, was the executive vice president. "Can I see the documents?" I asked Emily after coming up with an idea. Emily smiled smugly as she handed me the documents, assuming I had accepted. I looked through them and saw that my suspicion was right. The person in charge was previously labeled as me. The date, though, was from a few months prior to the time I received notice of my termination. What made her bring this up now? It's impossible because they appointed me. I firmly stated, understanding her motives. "I apologize. I've been fired. Mark is my name. I was in my mid-50s and working at a company. I've worked for this corporation for over half of my life, starting from the time I graduated. It was a weird feeling, both long and fleeting. I had a rewarding career as a salesperson in the beverage company's sales department. The sales department was divided into the marketing and sales divisions. Nevertheless, as the business grew, I was put in charge of the marketing division, where I currently work. The marketing division was in charge of developing strategies for product sales, in contrast to the sales department, which dealt directly with purchasing and selling. It concentrated on marketing to the market. The marketing department sought to comprehend the behavior of new customers and develop tactics, whilst the sales department worked with current clients. I was originally perplexed by the distinction, but it was really satisfying to sell the plans we looked at and talked about. However, some items didn't sell at all, while others reached unanticipated demographics, even with extensive market research and promotion. The complexity of marketing captivated me. As one of the department's original veterans, I was somewhat older, but I tried to interact with the younger employees. They became more forthcoming with me. I'd like that we could freely share our thoughts in this area. The opinions of young people were highly important, and they quickly obtained information from social media. Trends that appeared to be growing quickly could abruptly stall. It was difficult for me to keep up with this pace at my age, but it was a requirement of the job. Enemies' turn became useful informants once they were on your side. Mark, Mark, yelled a young male worker at me. Whom? What is it? Our rival company had a major backlash yesterday. What? Why? I tried to keep up with online news, but I often missed smaller stories. It seems they'd messed up with their tagline. He showed me the controversial post. This one. Seriously? Oh, I saw this yesterday. This is bad. It's outdated and won't fly these days. A female employee passing by joined the conversation. So it's really bad. Definitely bad. They both nodded in agreement. Close call. We were considering a similar angle, I said. I guess we should change it. Changing the tagline for the project I was working on was a hassle, but it was better than facing a backlash. That's a good idea. It'll backfire these days. This kind of thing gets a lot of backlash. It's better to avoid it. Thanks to everyone, regardless of their seniority, and clearly voicing their opinions, we managed to avoid major mistakes. The marketing department had a great atmosphere. However, this positive work environment was about to change due to a personnel transfer. We have personnel transfers every year, and there was a major reshuffle this time as well. Replacing our calm and always smiling manager, Mike, was a new female boss in her 30s. Emily was somewhat of a celebrity. Rumor had it that she joined the company through her connections with David, the executive VP, and also her father, and was doing whatever she pleased in various departments. In reality, she favored and gave preferential treatment to those who praised her, but those who disagreed or argued with her were forcibly removed. I had been dreading what would happen to this department, which was full of people who spoke their minds, and my worst fears were confirmed. I went to Emily's desk to get approval for a project. This project had been meticulously discussed with the sales team and employees, and we finally put it together. Everyone felt confident about it, and we were ready to move forward with production once we got approval. Emily glanced through the proposal and then said with a dismissive tone, "What's this project? It's terrible." She tossed the papers aside. What exactly is wrong with it? I nervously pressed for details. Emily, perhaps seeing it as defiance, glared at me sharply. What's wrong is wrong. Redo it. But could you tell me what specifically needs to be redone? I was confused and asked. Emily responded with cold words. I said everything. This project is rejected. Wait, please at least let us discuss the content a bit more. Ignoring my plea, Emily stood up and left. I told everyone about Emily's rejection, and we decided to hold a new planning meeting, confident in the previous project. Everyone gathered in the conference room with gloomy expressions. Amidst this, an overly cheerful voice echoed in the room. Why the long faces, everyone? I've got a great idea. Her proposal was outrageous, questionable, and seemed like no market research had been done at all. Even a new graduate could come up with something better. We listened in stunned silence as Emily presented. After a while, a young male employee timidly raised his hand. Excuse me, but how did you set up the persona for this project? Ha, persona? Don't interrupt while I'm talking. Emily snapped, then continued. A persona in marketing terms is a detailed profile of a target customer to give a concrete image of who they are. It's a basic marketing term, she said. It seemed Emily didn't know it. As we listened to her sloppy presentation, everyone exchanged furtive glances. We were all bewildered. When her presentation ended, she asked if there were any questions. I thought for a moment, then raised my hand and clearly stated, "Excuse me, Emily, but we can't proceed with this project." Emily's expression changed. What do you mean? Honestly, this project doesn't hold up as a proposal in marketing. Market research is crucial. Before I could finish, Emily sighed dramatically. You don't get it. What don't I get? I asked. Your position, Emily said, looking down at me with cold eyes. What do you mean by that? Before I could answer, Emily said, You're fired. Don't come back next month. Normally, managers couldn't fire an employee on their own, but it seemed Emily had some influence with her connections, which I couldn't resist. I was suddenly fired from the company I had worked at for over 30 years. Despite being overwhelmed with confusion and sadness, there was no reversing the decision. After a period of feeling down, I decided I couldn't continue like this, so I started looking for a new job while using up my remaining vacation days. Even though I only had connections at my current workplace, it seemed I wouldn't be left without a job at this age, thanks to the help of acquaintances. However, I was concerned about the colleagues I was leaving behind. Unfortunately, that was my last day. I had to talk with everyone during my last day at work. However, things didn't go as planned. As I was cleaning up my desk, Emily suddenly called me. I thought about quitting without saying a word, but I reluctantly headed to her office since I was summoned. Then she said something unbelievable. "Hey, take over the $15 million deal." I asked what she meant by taking over a deal on my last day, to which she replied, "I've decided to cancel your termination. So, can you start working on this deal right away?" While it might have been good that my termination was canceled, I had already secured a new job. Considering the arrangements with my new employer, I couldn't simply undo everything. More importantly, I didn't want to follow Emily's whims anymore. It was strange to assign such a huge project to an employee who was suddenly fired. Even though her father, David, was an executive VP, I couldn't tolerate any more of her arbitrary actions. I came up with an idea and said, "Can I see the documents?" Mistaking my intentions, Emily handed me the documents with a smug smile. As I flipped through them, my suspicion was confirmed. My name was already listed as the person in charge. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was informed of my termination. Why did she bring up this project at this time? Understanding her intentions, I firmly told Emily, "Since they appointed me, it's impossible. I'm fired." "What?" Emily exclaimed. "You're refusing a $15 million deal?" "Yes. To be precise, I can't take this under your management. I'll handle it at my new job." Emily stood up with a loud bang at my words. It was the first time I had seen her so flustered. "What do you mean by that?" she shouted, pounding the desk and leaning forward. I sighed and began to explain slowly. When I was first informed of my termination, I consulted with a former colleague who had worked in sales with me. He had planned to work with me in the marketing department, but chose to leave the company to pursue sales elsewhere. He was working as a sales manager at another beverage company at the time. We still went out for drinks, and I wanted his advice as someone who had experienced job transitions. After quietly listening to my story, he finished his beer and said, "Want to join us?" "Really? Is that okay?" I was surprised by the sudden offer, but he said he was close with their HR manager and would discuss it. Thankfully, things progressed smoothly from there. I never imagined I could transition to a new job so easily. I secured a position at another beverage company in the same industry. Moreover, I was assigned to the marketing department. It truly felt like a stroke of luck. During the interview, Jack, the HR manager, asked if I knew about a major project that had recently started. It was a widely discussed project about forming a business partnership with a rival company. Naturally, it involved a substantial amount of money. The partnership between rival companies had attracted considerable attention in the industry, so I had heard about it but didn't know the details. When I mentioned this, Jack tilted his head in confusion. The documents Jack had included my name. I was surprised and said, "There must be some mistake." But now, I understood this project had indeed come to our company. Emily had secretly tried to hijack a project originally assigned to me, and when it became too much for her, she tried to pass it off. It was bad enough she tried to steal it, but if she attempted it, she should have seen it through. I felt anger towards Emily's approach to her work. She must have bullied her way up to manager by intimidating others and taking credit for their work. Realizing the pettiness of Emily's methods, I sighed deeply once more. Emily had been listening and started trembling with anger, shouting, "Of course you can't refuse. You have to take this project. Even if you say that, panic that I wouldn't take the project." Emily turned to the other employees and said, "Hey, are you going to run away? If you leave, these guys will have to take over. Abandoning your colleagues makes you the worst." Having my colleagues, who had helped me so much, used as hostages left me speechless. But then everyone turned their attention to a figure entering the office. There was a man in a well-tailored suit, exuding authority and presence. "That's enough, Emily. It was David, Dad." Emily's eyes widened, and she took a step back. She must have never expected her father, the executive VP, to appear. David. I couldn't hide my surprise either. Seeing David in the office was rare. It might have even been the first time he visited the marketing department. I had informed him today was my last day, but I never expected him to come. "I'm sorry, Mark. It seems my daughter has caused trouble." David looked at me with an apologetic expression. "No, I never expected you to come. I love my daughter, you see. I've turned a blind eye until now, but this time I couldn't ignore it. I don't know how to apologize enough to you." David looked down. "Please raise your head." "Yes, Dad, why are you apologizing to someone like him?" Emily's face was filled with fear and anxiety. "Emily, you mustn't say someone like him. Mark and I have been colleagues in the sales department for a long time." David firmly rebuked Emily. "David was my senior in the sales department, and we had a long history together. We rarely met since he became the executive VP, but he still invited me for drinks a few times a year. He had contacted me while I was on vacation, and I had told him about what had happened. But Dad, I'm his boss. If you think being a boss means you can do anything, you're gravely mistaken." David raised his voice, and Emily shrank back in fear. "Emily, you've gone too far. You're an adult now. Even though you're my daughter, you'll have to face the consequences yourself." "No, Dad, wait. I didn't do anything." Emily clung to her father with a pale face. "I've been listening to your conversation with Mark from outside the room. It's unacceptable to decide someone's fate based on your whims. You're not suited for a leadership position." "That's not true. I did well in my previous department too." Emily tried to defend herself, tears in her eyes. "I hate to say this, but all you've been doing is taking credit for others' work to climb up the ladder. That's not real work. Stop this childish behavior. That's cruel." "It's not childish. I was doing my job properly." Ignoring Emily's tearful pleas, David turned his back on his daughter. "I will report this matter to Mr. Smith. It's my fault for letting it go this far. Mark, I'm truly sorry for what happened. I hope you excel at your new job." "Thank you. I'd love to go out for drinks again sometime." David smiled and left the marketing department, leaving a crying Emily behind. Not long after, I resigned. Emily's fate was decided as well. She was demoted and transferred to a remote sales office. It was a clear case of being sidelined. David voluntarily offered to cut his executive compensation. The marketing team continued to work diligently, expressing their opinions freely in project meetings. They seemed to be satisfied with their new boss, and the tone of their occasional emails to me was cheerful. I hoped they would keep their sincerity and continue to have fulfilling days ahead. Mark. A young male employee called out to me as I was looking at my PC. "What's up? Check this out. This post is going viral." "What? Which one?" "This one, right here." He showed me his phone screen. "Wow, it's getting a lot of comments." "Yes, we've nailed the buzz factor." Reading through the comments, I couldn't help but pump my fist. "This photo is great too. I'm really happy." The young employee chuckled at my reaction. "What's funny?" "Well, you always talk to us so casually that I forget there's a big age gap between us." I felt a bit of a generation gap just now. "What? When? What was it?" As I panicked, he coldly responded, "It's a secret." "Why? Tell me." "Nope." Smiling mischievously, he returned to his desk. "Come on, seriously." I didn't understand what caused the generation gap, so I tilted my head and returned my gaze to the computer. A few months had passed since I started my new job. Even though it was the same industry and the same marketing department, the internal systems and methods were, of course, different. Learning new things at this age was challenging, but both young and veteran employees had started talking to me casually lately. Many people had strong opinions, and being able to work while challenging each other was immensely gratifying. The $15 million project was still ongoing. Ultimately, the project at my old company was taken over by a trusted colleague, which was a relief. Meeting up with him during meetings was always something to look forward to. My career change reaffirmed that there is still much to learn in marketing. Despite my age, I'm still a newcomer here, and I want to absorb as much as I can. Mark, the meeting is starting. At my colleague's call, I stood up energetically. Coming. I headed to the meeting room with a spring in my step. I wondered what kind of ideas would come up today. I opened the door to the meeting room with anticipation.